Welcome back to the What About AI podcast. I'm Sean Boyce.
Hey all, I'm James Perkins.
And the topic that we've picked out for today is news that made the rounds just yesterday with Amazon announcing dramatically increased layoffs, which I think in total amounts to about 30,000 now in 3 months. And the ones they just talked about, they released this information yesterday, but 16,000 job cuts coming or active. And that was announced just yesterday on top of 14,000 that were announced in October of 2025 and amounts to about 10% of their workforce. And there's a lot of juicy stuff here, which is very specific to the topics that we talk about. That pretty much it all points to AI.
That's why we're in this business, right? We're here to help solve for that situation. Those numbers are outrageous. What jobs were included in that?
Yeah, great
Out of
question. Let's go into
curiosity.
that. So what they talk about with the actual effective release, and the way that this came to the public's knowledge is not great on Amazon. There was a email that made the rounds and kind of everyone was already freaking out, but it was an errant email I think that was sent that it kind of released relatively earlier, not according to the cadence that they wanted to, but I did a little bit more digging into the actual what positions and roles and stuff like that. And it's pretty much everything across the board. So a lot of what they talked about was cloud computing. I mean, here, AWS, Prime Video, human resources, retail, it just like hits all of those. And then it goes across a bunch of other departments. The big one in middle management, thousands of engineers, software developers, product management, recruiting. This list kind of just goes on. The general theme, like pretty much across the board, is their corporate white collar professional jobs. AI is taking over the repetitive tasks, and engineering, product management, anything related to ops is just getting the axe for the most part. Um, yeah, that's pretty much what it looks like.
I mean, this is exactly what we predicted was going to happen. This is kind of tip of the iceberg, I would say,
I think that's a good way to think of this.
because every company is now building these plans, figuring out where they can cut the fat, quote unquote, where they may have some excess, where they can automate the work. And no job is safe. I've had friends that are in HR recently that I've talked to, like over the holiday break, and they were like, "Well, HR will be last to go because we're helping design the production in force or whatever it might
Apparently
be."
not.
That's not true. If you're in HR, you are at risk, and I think the big risk is not being ready to augment your work. So it's not outright replacement where folks are just going to lose their job en masse. They still have an HR team at Amazon, right?
Yep,
But they probably kept the folks that are already finding ways to multiply their work.
good point.
I think that's kind of the biggest thing to point out. So don't have despair, because one of the comments in the videos recently was, "We're so negative." It's not that we're negative. We're stating realities.
Point taken.
Yeah, but it's not, we're not saying, live with fear, live in sadness. We're saying be ready for this.
Yeah,
If you don't augment yourself, you are going to be replaced.
agreed. Yeah, I think the general theme for what our mission is really is to help you prepare for what may be coming and then giving you indications of what that looks like in terms of real world case studies like this one at Amazon. So a lot of what they talked about was, it's culture shifting. They're looking to kind of become more efficient, remove bureaucracy, that type of stuff. But in reality, I think what it looks like is they're just, like you said, looking for opportunities to increase profits, become more efficient, leverage AI more significantly. Because a lot of these roles, like software engineering, product management, you would think those roles would predominantly be involved in bringing some of those things to life, and I'm sure they are. But to your point, it's probably mostly folks that are leaning into exactly what they want, not trying to do things versus the way that we did in previous generation of the technology.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And think about your own personal lifestyle, right? How much do you order from Amazon on a regular basis?
Almost everything.
Yeah, Amazon's not suffering financially right now. They're doing okay. These weren't necessary cuts that they had to make to run the business. So anyone that says that, I mean, that's just an excuse. The reality is they wanted to make these cuts for the bottom line, for their stock price, and they can do it now because AI is enabling them to do so. I remember hearing a comment you made about repetitive tasks. That's what they're claiming with this, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's pretty much the general theme. Anywhere, it seems like I'd be interested to learn more about this and how it came to be. The leaked email, which is how a lot of people unfortunately found out about this, was called Project Dawn. That sounds pretty assuming right
The
in of
dawn
itself,
of
right?
what?
Exactly. what's next from that if this is just the beginning? So I wouldn't be surprised if they did some kind of like performance audit or review or something like that, and they looked for those patterns in terms of where is the technology, where can we lean into this technology, benefit from it, where do we make the changes that are going to have the least negative impact and still setting us up for where we're going next, because the other theme here is that basically they're 30,000 in 3 months amounts to essentially like 10% of Amazon's global workforce, which is
That's
those are crazy numbers in a
unbelievable.
very short period of time. So, like you said, I think the stuff is just getting started, but at the same time, they're investing over $100 billion in AI and AI infrastructure. So, like, they couldn't be clearer with their signals in terms of what they're doing now and what's coming with what they're planning.
Yeah, it's a unfortunate reality, but you won't survive it by rejecting it or ignoring it. So acting as though AI is not making this much of an impact yet, like even the numbers we talked about from last year,
Yep.
oh, it's only 4% of the workforce may have been impacted by AI automation.
Right.
That's going to double or triple this year because the technology exists. If you're a knowledge worker, AI can do a lot of what you do every day already. Yes, it needs some orchestration, it needs some guidance. You may have to build a skills file or some other work like that. But once it knows what you do day to day, it can replicate your work if most of your work is from a computer. If you're
Yep.
doing most things digitally, you can already be replaced in many jobs, especially low level jobs.
Yeah.
So that's probably what happened here. Does it say if these are more junior folks or senior?
It doesn't add a ton into the seniority. It does lean in pretty significantly to like the middle management layers. So to me, that indicates there's probably some people with some serious seniority at Amazon who are part of that list.
That's a big call out.
Yeah.
So the other thing is people I know, and I've worked with these folks, think that because they're high enough up in the org chart, that it's not going to affect them.
Or have been there long enough
Yeah,
kind of thing.
middle
Those are
management's
mistaken.
probably at extreme risk right
Yeah, I
now.
would say at or near the top of the list. I've seen that be a pretty common theme.
You're going to see a flattening of orgs.
There's a lot of
Yeah,
layers to a lot of organizations, especially like an
I would agree.
Amazon out there that's that large. So, yeah, I mean, if I think the takeaway here, if I'm summarizing and reading between those lines, is if that starts to sound like the profile that you may be in, then the risk may be higher or elevated. So, being more proactive about that in terms of like what you can do to prepare, if in the event you will be subject to that, or you need to make a change yourself, or at least be prepared for it, probably good advice, I would
Yeah,
say.
and there's a lot you can do. So I mean, we can only share so many things here, but Claude now exists in Excel. Anthropic Claude, it's one of the AI tools that are out there today. They have an Excel plugin. People spent decades learning how to write scripts within Excel and use shortcuts within Excel and
True.
basically just become spreadsheet wizards.
A go-to expert.
That entire skill set is no longer as relevant as it was 2 months ago, a
Yep.
month ago. It's just, I mean, anyone that can say in plain language what they want from a set of data in a spreadsheet can get it now.
Yep.
No pivot tables involved, personally. It'll do it for you.
Yep.
So what can you do to survive in this new environment? Learn how to use the tools, right? So prompt appropriately in Excel using Claude to get the results you want instead of spending 3 days building pivot tables. That's the kind of stuff people have to start thinking about. And that's the kind of stuff we prep folks for. So all of our clients that we work with today, I'd say, like, I got a question yesterday around, well, what do I do with this new Excel tool? My company doesn't allow it. Start using it outside of work. Don't use work data. I'm not saying to use private work data, but start learning how to use the tool outside of the office. For your personal life, I
Agreed.
saved
Good advice.
15% on some of our food orders just by reorganizing our spending a little bit using Claude and Excel.
Yeah, it's probably going to feel like you're using it too much, but I don't think that's a thing anymore. The more you use it, the more problems you solve with, the more efficient and effective you become at whatever it is you want to do with it. I think those skills become universal these days. You can apply that to whatever, including your work. So agreed with that advice. There's one other stat. Of course, I'm a numbers guy. Apologies. But I got a ton here, but there's only one I'm going to mention because I think it's pretty significant. And I think it speaks to a question that I had myself. So I was interested to kind of learn where we're at with this. So for those of you out there who may be wondering, like, what do the numbers look like in terms of the layoffs that since this stuff has started and since AI has become really popular, generative AI and OpenAI came out with ChatGPT, what do those numbers look like? How much and then what is the whatever the potential total so far in terms of layoffs, and how much of it at least has theoretically been, or maybe even specifically attributed to like AI in terms of why they did the layoffs. So I've got some numbers for that. So tech layoffs, it says since ChatGPT launched, which is around late 2022, right?
Mhm.
They said tech layoffs are about 500,000 in number, which is that's a almost a hard number to wrap my head around. 500,000 since late 2022 generally, and then 2025 alone saw about a quarter million just in
That
2025
is nothing.
of
Those are
global
baby
tech
numbers.
layoffs. And the other piece of that that I thought was interesting was how much of it was specifically blamed on AI. Because like even in this Amazon announcement, they're not they're not yet quite directly saying it, but I think everyone's reading between those lines. And like these leaked memos and emails and stuff like that are telling a big picture of the story. But for here it says of that quarter million, about 25% of that, or like 50, about 50,000 or so, a little bit more than 50,000 are specifically blamed on AI.
Oh my goodness. That, I mean,
Those numbers may be flipped. I feel like it's 80% is
it's
probably the real
it's
story.
more like 80%.
This is crazy.
The other thing is, and this is again not fear mongering, but so much of the tech has been in sort of like a research lab for the past 5, 10 years.
True.
Like things were showing promise, but they couldn't really make it work in practical use cases, or took a lot of training and exercise and fiddling around. Now you just kind of set it and forget it. I hate to
So
use that
easy.
phrase, but if you download Claude to your machine, whether you have a MacBook or a Windows laptop, and I'm still using ancient Windows over here, but whatever you have at home, if you download Claude to your Anthropic Claude to your machine, you can start coding instantaneously. You can feed it a document that has all of your purchases for the last 6 months and get insights. You can do tons of things without having to actually do any real thought work yourself. You just, I mean, there is a skill to prompting, knowing how to prompt. You have to be good at that, but it's not hard to learn. It's a because I've had some clients we worked with too that were,
Yep.
50 plus, and saying like, I don't want to learn new technology. Is this going to be hard for me? No, it won't. Like, we'll teach you how to use it, and I've done that already with two of our clients. No problem. Like, it took 3 months, 3 months of back and forth, and now they're using it every day in their just daily lifestyle
Yeah.
and at work. And that's where you need to be. If you're watching this video and you're not using AI every day to accelerate your own life, then you are at risk. I can
Fair.
promise you that.
Yeah. No, I agreed. And getting into that mindset, it's definitely a shift. I mean, it was for me. It's been a while now. I can almost not even conceptualize not having it. I use it so frequently. We joke about this a lot that I pretty much know instantaneously when any of them are having a service disruption. So
Yeah.
I go to my down detectors and stuff like that when I get like a response that's not something I'm expecting. And for the most part, it's some type of service interruption. And the reason why I'm able to do that so efficiently is because of how much I'm leveraging it. So that there's risk inherently with that as well too. But I think that's a better place to be right now because you got to be prepared for it. This other thing I was going to mention as well too, which I think is an interesting and counterintuitive, probably for a lot of folks, pattern that's developing. So Amazon with these, record layoffs, largest in the company's history, but at the same time, largely record profits. So I think, especially when I was, working in
That's what I'm
corporate,
saying. They're not having a
exactly,
hard time. They're doing okay.
exactly. Like, and when I was working in corporate, the sentiment amongst our coworkers when the company was doing well was that we were all doing well, and like that was a good thing for everybody. But here, and there's more to this pattern, I think, in addition to that as well too. It's record profits, also like record or striking investments in AI, but at the same time, mass layoffs, which I think that flips the script a little bit. I don't know what you've seen. That's kind of different to me than what the patterns used to be like.
I completely agree. I think that's the change that a lot of folks I've talked with just in personal life don't understand is coming. So just because a company's doing well does not mean they're going to keep you employed.
Exactly.
And there's the wealth shift, the transfer of wealth right now is very, very quickly going to go from many of these corporations to the AI companies, because it has to. If these companies are taking in almost $1 trillion collectively in investment, they have to make that money back. And they're going to do so by taking jobs, basically by going out and helping companies significantly reduce their workforce expense by leveraging the AI tools and AI powered robotics.
Yep.
So if you're not part of that equation, then you will not be employed at that company regardless of how well they're doing.
I think you nailed it, and that's a key takeaway I would say for me from here, because that's a big part of what we're doing content wise is how can you guys that are consuming this content prepare and then be ready for whatever, right? Because the at this point it's almost like predicting the unpredictable. I mentioned that pattern, but what James just said I think is a really key point of this, as in I think it's a flag if you're seeing your company make significant investment in AI, but it isn't to train you, or they're not actively involving you in that process. So I would be wary of any pattern like that developing wherever you may be, and just realize that that might be a signal. I think it probably was in this case, and that could be for anyone at this point. So it's best to, like as we said, prepare yourself for what may be coming, so that regardless of what happens, like you're able to set yourself up okay next.
Yeah, I would add to that a few times during this podcast and even the ones we've done before. I feel a little bit like I'm plugging our business. But the reality is, we're doing this because we want to make an impact.
Yeah,
Like, we want to change the world. We're trying to, I don't want to say save people, but I have kids. He has
same.
kids.
Yep.
We have family members that are going through this right now. I mean, this is not like a you problem or a me problem. It's a we
It's
problem.
definitely
We
an all
have to
thing. Yeah.
solve this for everyone. So, yeah, we need money to live and we do charge for some of our services, but we have tons of free resources as well. We want to help you get through this. You're not alone. And I think if you pay attention, if you at least tune in to the podcast, you'll have a decent pulse on what's happening in the world.
Well said. No, agreed. Yeah, that's all we got, I think, for this one. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, for anyone that lost their job at Amazon, we're thinking about you. And
Definitely.
if we can help in any way, reach out, please.
Agreed. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
All right. Thanks all.